when we talk about meals in the context of our faith, we approach it from the perspective of serving someone else. Delivering those lunches we make for the students in the summer, or dishing up a dinner plate down at Shepherd's table, or in some ways giving of ourselves so others might eat. And it says it right here in today's gospel from Jesus. For who is greater, the one at the table or the one who serves? These roles of serving and being served have been used to establish a dynamic of inequality, positioning the one who serves as less than. And it's one of the reasons why Jesus continues to go and attack that point, to address a structure of power over and against, and empower what the world perceives as weak. But this isn't just a one-way street. When we break bread together, we're developing community. We're building relationships in a space where the Spirit continues to stir. Civil rights activist and labor leader Cesar Chavez once said, if you really want to make a friend, go to someone's house and eat with them. The people who give you their food give you their heart. Each time I hear that quote, I'm reminded of a wonderful memory, or a gracious host in my life, or a special meal that someone had taken great care of preparing. And I'm also thankful for having a fairly strong stomach that has allowed me to engage and encounter some of these adventures that have appeared before me. From sharing a box of mac and cheese that was made by Harper, seeing the pride in her eyes, to enjoying a cup of a fermented corn beverage that was prepared weeks earlier by my hosts, and who, as I was sipping on it, described the process in which the corn mash was chewed and spit into water. It didn't stop me from getting another glass. There's a vulnerability in this, in being a guest, in receiving what has been prepared for you with gratitude. A vulnerability in offering something that you have made because it can reveal a piece of your culture or an experience. It can expose maybe some limited skills you have in the kitchen, or reveal a hidden talent of a chef lying inside of you. Eating is an essential part of life. And the act of sharing a meal is an essential part of our communal faith together. Throughout Lent, we've joined Jesus around the meal table, experiencing the power of breaking bread, the act of grace that appears at the table, the engaging, transforming, and sometimes controversial dialogue that happens between him there over a cup, discovering hope, of distributing scraps of loaves and fish to the thousands who are hungry, experiencing a taste that goes beyond satisfying that grumbling stomach, but instead stirs a hunger for justice. And receiving that invitation to join in the mission of healing and feeding and loving and caring in a world that seeks again and again excuses to remain broken and divided. Today, Palm Sunday, we enter a crossroads, one of celebration and mourning, shouts of hosannas and cries of suffering. We come to a table of fellowship and betrayal, and we find these disciples energized by the crowds celebrating the arrival of the Messiah and unprepared for those changes, the dark shadows, death, and humiliation that await us. Today, we hear the story of the meal. The hour has come. Jesus has dined in many homes, has feasted as a guest numerous times, but at this table, on this night, Jesus takes the place as host of this final Passover Seder meal with his disciples. And although it's mentioned in all the other gospel accounts, Luke's account is the only one that places some other context around these familiar words that we hear at our ritual meal, as Jesus offers up a second cup of wine, the first in what traditionally is 4 glasses of wine at the Seder, reflecting the Israelites' liberation from exile and slavery. Unfortunately for us, the church does not carry on this tradition of multiple glasses at Holy Communion. There's only one. But gathered around this table, he shared the cup, broke the bread, told them of the suffering ahead, and gave them a liberating promise through this food. And then he listened to them argue and fight, debating who was the greatest among them. And he looks over and sees Judas, who will turn him in. He'll turn and see Peter, who will deny him. And all the others who will flee and abandon him as things start to get tough. And in the midst of that, at that meal, he took the bread, he broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you." The invitation to the table has been and continues to be a contentious and divisive point among Christian brothers and sisters. We struggle, some of us not too much, over who will be recognized at our table, who the host truly is, who does the inviting. We struggle with who and what the right mind we need to have to approach the table. If we are right with God to accept this food, if we have the correct denominational card in our pocket, whether we're the correct age or believe the correct way. We've argued over the number of times we should take communion in the month, whether it's too much or too little. I don't know if it's just me, maybe some others have had this experience of being glared at when you laugh during the solemn act of the meal. But all in all, continuing to be defensive of who is the greatest among us, who has not betrayed Jesus. Jesus may not explain the full meaning of his death. We may never truly understand what this means, but he leaves no doubt as to its significance for his followers, for you, for me, above all and beyond all of our confusion and questions. We hear two words that shock, that bring unimaginable understanding, that utterly unexpected promise of everything that Jesus Christ suffers, all the humiliation and shame, all the defeat and agony, all of this that he suffers for us, so that we might have life and light and hope in his name. This is my body given for you. Jesus says those words and shares the bread and wine with everyone at this table this night. It was not a supper of the righteousness, but a taste of the salvation to come. These disciples, in all their brokenness, their weakness, their humanness, were invited to sit and enjoy the food and to receive Jesus' very heart in this meal. We can never truly comprehend why there is this deep commitment from God to us. But when we see the form of Christ on the cross, we can never doubt God's profound love for us. For in those two liberating words, "for you," when those are spoken, and we taste the bread and the wine at this table, we have God's tangible and tenacious promise to be forever and always